Kobe was a city known for its beauty and peace, nestled between mountains and the sea. Its streets were calm, and its people lived quietly, with little fear of crime. The high school where Haruto and Ren studied was one of the many ordinary schools. In the city, a place where students went about their daily routines, preparing for exams and planning their futures. It was a place filled with the usual laughter, friendships, and school events. But one cold autumn morning, the normal rhythm of the school day was shattered forever. As the first students arrived at the school gate, something horrifying caught their eyes. At the very entrance, where students usually passed under the welcoming arch every day, was something so gruesome that many stopped in shock, unable to move or speak. There, displayed for everyone to see, was the severed head of one of their classmates, Haruto. The sight was so terrifying and unnatural that it felt like a nightmare they could not wake from. The head was carefully placed on a metal spike, almost like a grotesque warning. It was clear that the act was not done in anger or rage alone, but with a cold, chilling intention. The news spread instantly through the school, and then throughout Kobe. The police were called immediately, but even they were stunned by the brutality. How could such a terrible thing happen in a city like Kobe? How could a school, meant to be a safe place for children, become the scene of such horror? Haruto was known by many. He was just 16 years old, a bright student with a friendly smile, and an easygoing personality. To most, he seemed like the typical teenager, someone who had dreams and friends and nothing to fear. Many teachers and classmates remembered him as kind and hard-working. He participated in school clubs and was popular among his peers. There was no sign that Haruto had enemies, no one who openly disliked him. That made the crime all the more shocking and confusing. Rumors quickly began to swirl, but no one knew what to believe. Some whispered about gangs or dangerous strangers coming to Kobe. Others suspected someone from the school, but it seemed impossible. The peaceful city had no history of violence like this, especially not involving teenagers. The police investigation began quickly, with officers questioning students and teachers. Cameras around the school were checked, and evidence was gathered. Everyone was scared and confused, unsure if the killer was still nearby, or if this was part of a bigger plan. The school closed for a few days, unable to continue with classes while the investigation was underway. Parents were worried, many considering pulling their children from the school. The media arrived in Kobe, reporting live from the scene. The story was everywhere, not just in Japan but around the world. People were horrified and fascinated by such a dark act committed by someone so young. As the days passed, the police slowly started to piece together what happened. They found signs that the killer had carefully planned the crime. There was no sign of a violent struggle at the school gate itself. It seemed the head had been brought there deliberately, after the crime took place somewhere else. The victim's body was found hidden not far from the school. The manner in which the crime was committed was brutal, shocking even the most experienced detectives. The level of violence suggested deep anger or hatred, but no clear motive was known. The community was in shock. Students who had known Haruto could not believe he was gone, and in such a horrifying way. Many felt unsafe and betrayed by the very place that was supposed to protect them. The fear was not only about the crime itself, but about what it said. That darkness could hide beneath the surface of their peaceful lives. As the investigation unfolded, police began to focus on one student, Ren. Ren was a quiet boy, often alone, someone who rarely spoke in class and kept to himself. He did not stand out much among his classmates, but after the crime, people started to notice things they hadn't before: strange behavior, moments of anger, and sadness. Ren's family was contacted, and officers spoke with his parents. They described him as a good boy, but said he had changed over the past year, becoming withdrawn and distant. No one could have imagined he might be involved in something so terrible. In the coming days, police found disturbing evidence in Ren's room: drawings that were dark and violent, notes filled with anger and pain. These clues painted a picture of a boy struggling inside, but they did not explain why he would commit such an extreme act. The mystery deepened as the police learned that Ren had been bullied by Haruto and some of his friends. It was something no one knew about before. Behind the smiles and everyday school life, Ren had been suffering silently. The bullying was harsh and constant: insults, exclusion, and even physical violence. Some classmates said they had seen Ren with bruises, or heard him cry quietly after school, but no one stepped in to help. The school had rules against bullying, but it seemed the problem was hidden well enough to avoid serious attention. Could this bullying have pushed Ren over the edge? Was it possible that beneath his quiet exterior was a storm of pain and anger building up for months or even years? Police began to see the crime not just as a random act of violence, but as something connected to deeper problems in the school and community. Despite the suspicions, many still found it hard to accept that Ren could be the killer. He seemed so different from the violent image the crime suggested. Some believed he might be protecting someone else or was being framed. As the investigation continued, new questions appeared. Why display the head in such a public and shocking way? Was it meant to send a message? If so, to whom? The police struggled to find answers, knowing that the truth might be more complicated than anyone expected. In the silence of his home, Ren's parents tried to understand what had happened. They had never imagined their son capable of such darkness. Friends and neighbors whispered about the family, wondering what they had missed. At school, students struggled to cope with fear and grief. The place where they had once felt safe had become a symbol of terror. Some students moved to other schools, while others stayed, determined to face the pain and find healing. The Kobe case became a story that touched not only the city, but the whole country. It raised questions about youth, violence, and the hidden dangers within society. How could such a young boy commit such a crime? What secrets had been buried beneath the surface for so long? As the investigation went on, more layers of the story began to unfold. Secrets about the school, about friendships, about pressures that teenagers faced in modern Japan. The tragedy of Haruto's death was only the beginning of a story that would change many lives forever. What started as a quiet morning in a peaceful city became a nightmare that no one could forget. The mystery of the severed head at the school gate was a dark shadow hanging over Kobe, a warning that beneath calm and order, there can be terrible chaos waiting to explode. The deeper the police dug into the lives of both Ren and Haruto, the more the picture became complicated and darker than anyone had imagined. What seemed like a straightforward case of bullying and revenge began to unravel into something far more disturbing, revealing secrets that no one expected to find in a quiet school in Kobe. Ren's family life was one of the first things the investigators looked at closely. At home, Ren was not the quiet, shy boy some thought he was at school. His father was a man of strict discipline, demanding excellence in everything, from school grades to behavior. Failure or disappointment was never accepted. His mother, on the other hand, was emotionally distant, often preoccupied with her own problems and unable to offer the warmth or support a teenage boy desperately needed. Ren's loneliness was compounded by this cold atmosphere, a prison without walls where no one noticed the cracks in his spirit. As police questioned his family and examined his private belongings, they found signs that Ren's mental state had been deteriorating over months. His bedroom walls were covered with strange, disturbing drawings, sketches of broken faces, shadowy figures, and symbols that made no sense to the untrained eye. Pages of his notebooks were filled with cryptic writings, phrases that spoke of pain, anger, and betrayal. These writings seemed like a secret language, a way to express feelings he couldn't say out loud. Meanwhile, Haruto's life began to reveal shadows hidden behind his popular image. Although many described him as friendly and outgoing, the police discovered that Haruto was involved in a dangerous online group. This group was a secret network of students who manipulated and controlled others through threats, fear, and psychological pressure. It was a dark corner of the internet where teenage power played out in cruel ways. This group was not just about online bullying. It was a sophisticated system of control. Members would pressure classmates to do harmful things, spreading rumors or forcing silence through intimidation. Haruto was one of the leaders, someone who used his charm and popularity to keep others under his influence. The police found evidence that he had been recruiting other students and using secrets against them, creating a web of fear that kept many quiet. This revelation shocked the community. Many who thought Haruto was a kind boy began to question everything. Was he really the victim? Had he been hiding behind a mask, a master manipulator playing a dangerous game? And if Haruto had such power in this secret group, how was it connected to Ren's suffering? The lines between victim and perpetrator began to blur. Ren's bullying was not just random cruelty, but possibly part of the pressure from this network. The police found messages on social media and text conversations that showed threats and insults exchanged between Haruto's group and Ren. The torment Ren endured was more than just isolated incidents. It was part of a larger, darker system. The mystery deepened when the police found out about other students who had been affected by the group. Several teenagers had dropped out of school or changed schools without explanation. Some suffered from anxiety and depression, too scared to tell their families what was happening. It became clear that the school was hiding a terrible secret beneath its surface of normality. With this knowledge, the police started to consider a new possibility. Ren's crime was not only personal revenge, but a desperate act to break free from a world of control and fear. Displaying Haruto's head at the school gate was meant as a message, not just to Haruto, but to the entire network that had been poisoning the lives of so many students. But even this explanation did not answer everything. If Ren was so desperate to stop the group, why didn't he tell anyone before? Why choose such a horrifying way to send his message? The brutality and public nature of the crime suggested a mind overwhelmed by pain and anger, someone who felt trapped with no way out. The police also questioned whether Ren had any help or if he acted alone. The careful planning of the crime suggested he might have had support, but no clear evidence of accomplices appeared. The possibility remained that the network had eyes everywhere, silently watching. As the investigation grew more intense, pressure mounted on the school and local government. Parents demanded answers and safety reforms. Teachers felt guilt for missing the signs of suffering around them. Psychologists and experts said the case was a warning about the dangers of unchecked bullying in secret online groups. Behind the scenes, detectives worked tirelessly to find more connections. They interviewed students anonymously and searched through online forums and chat rooms linked to the group. They discovered that such networks were not unique to Kobe. Similar groups existed in other schools across Japan, hidden but powerful. This fact made the case even more alarming. It was not just about two teenagers. It was about a system of control and fear affecting many young people. The Kobe case was just the most extreme example, a tragedy that brought these issues into the light. At the same time, Ren's own behavior and mental health became a major concern. Psychologists who met him described a boy trapped between anger and sadness, struggling to understand his own feelings. His confession revealed pain deeper than anyone imagined, a desire not only for revenge, but for justice and freedom. Ren's story showed how pressure and isolation could break even the quietest person. His violent act was a desperate scream from a soul in torment, a cry for help that came too late. The police knew that justice was complicated in this case. The community needed answers, but it also needed healing. The school began to take serious steps to fight bullying and support students. New programs were introduced to help teenagers deal with stress, and teachers were trained to recognize signs of trouble. But the scars remained. The Kobe case changed the way people saw their children and their schools. It revealed how appearances could deceive and how pain often hides in silence. As the police continued their work, the full story slowly emerged. A story of secrets, control, and the struggle of young lives caught in impossible situations. The terrifying crime was only one piece of a larger puzzle, one that forced a community to face its darkest truths. The investigation into the secret group continued, leading to arrests and further revelations. But the damage had been done. The Kobe case became a symbol of warning, a reminder that even in the safest places, danger can hide where no one expects. This chapter in the story showed that the tragedy was not just about one boy's death, but about the hidden battles many teenagers fight every day. It raised painful questions about the power of cruelty, the need for compassion, and the importance of listening to those who suffer in silence. In the end, the mystery of the Kobe case was more than a crime. It was a call to change, a chance for a broken community to heal and protect its children before it was too late. The tension in the police interrogation room was thick as Ren sat alone, silent at first, staring at the cold walls. Days of questioning had passed, but he said very little. His eyes seemed distant, as if he was somewhere far away from the bright, harsh lights and the sharp voices. The officers watching him knew this was a boy carrying a heavy burden, but they needed answers. Answers to a crime so shocking it had shaken the entire city of Kobe. Finally, after hours of silence, Ren began to speak. What he revealed was more surprising and complex than anyone had expected. He confessed to killing Haruto and placing his head at the school gate. But this was not a crime driven by simple revenge or anger. Ren explained that the act was meant as a warning, a message to a secret online group that Haruto was part of. It was meant to expose the darkness hidden behind the school's friendly facade. Ren described the secret group in detail, a network of students who controlled and manipulated others through fear and intimidation. Haruto, as one of the leaders, had used this group to keep power over many classmates. Ren said he had suffered under this control for years, bullied and humiliated by Haruto and his friends, forced into silence by threats and fear. Ren's confession was chilling. He spoke about the pressure he felt, the hopelessness that built inside him until he could no longer endure it. Displaying Haruto's severed head was not just a way to punish his bully, it was a desperate cry to bring the hidden cruelty to light, to shock the community into action. The police listened carefully, but some officers remained skeptical. They wondered how a teenager could plan and carry out such a violent act alone. Was Ren telling the full truth, or was he trying to protect others? The careful nature of the crime suggested planning beyond a single mind. The police kept probing, searching for connections. Meanwhile, outside the interrogation room, the news of Ren's confession spread like wildfire. The people of Kobe were both horrified and fascinated by the complexity of the case. The idea of a secret student network, controlling others, seemed like a dark story from a movie, not something real and alive in their schools. As the investigation deepened, police began to uncover more about this shadowy group. They found encrypted messages on phones and computers, hidden chat rooms, and secret meetings. The group's reach extended far beyond what anyone had imagined, involving dozens of students and influencing many aspects of school life. Parents who had trusted the school to protect their children now demanded answers. How had such a dangerous network grown without detection? How had teachers and administrators missed the signs? The school faced intense criticism and pressure to reform. The police also looked into the psychological effects of the group on its members and victims. Experts said the network operated like a cult, controlling minds and creating fear that kept people silent. Victims were isolated and manipulated, unable to speak out or seek help. Ren's confession gave new meaning to his disturbing drawings and writings. They were expressions of his pain, fear, and determination to fight back in any way he could. The brutality of the crime was his twisted way of exposing the truth. As the investigation unfolded, police arrested several other students connected to the network. Some were leaders, like Haruto had been, while others were followers or victims trapped in the system. The arrests sent shockwaves through the community and the country. Ren's story became a complicated mixture of victim and villain. Some saw him as a tragic figure forced into a terrible choice, while others viewed him as a dangerous criminal. The legal process was difficult, balancing justice with understanding the deep problems behind the crime. Psychologists worked with Ren, trying to help him confront his trauma and guilt. His mental health was fragile, and the pressure of the trial weighed heavily on him. But his testimony was crucial in revealing the full scope of the network's control. The case also inspired national conversations about bullying, mental health, and the hidden dangers of online groups. Schools across Japan began reviewing their policies and taking stronger actions against bullying and secret networks. The government introduced new programs aimed at protecting students and teaching them to recognize signs of abuse and manipulation. Despite all this, the scars of the crime remained. The community struggled to heal from the shock and horror. Students who had been part of the network faced shame and regret, while victims worked to rebuild their lives. The Kobe case revealed how young people can be trapped in systems of control and fear, and how difficult it is to break free. Ren's desperate act was both a warning and a tragedy, showing the destructive power of silence and secrecy. For many, the case was a reminder that violence is often the result of deeper pain and suffering. It called on society to listen more carefully to young people, to recognize their struggles, and to create safe spaces where they can speak without fear. As the trial approached, the community waited anxiously. The story that had shocked the nation was far from over. The questions raised by Ren's confession, the role of the secret network, the responsibility of the school, and the fate of a troubled boy would take years to answer fully. In the quiet moments after the interrogation, as Ren faced his own thoughts and fears, the truth was clear. This case was about more than one crime. It was about the hidden battles that many teenagers face, and the urgent need to change a system that allowed such darkness to grow. The Kobe case became a lasting chapter in Japan's history of crime, a story of pain, courage, and the search for justice. It challenged everyone to look beyond appearances and confront the realities that too often go unseen. The trial of Ren began months after his arrest, drawing enormous attention across Japan. The courtroom was packed with reporters, students, parents, and officials. This was not just a case about one brutal crime. It had become a national conversation about bullying, mental health, and the hidden darkness lurking behind school walls. Everyone wanted to know the truth and justice. Ren sat quietly in the defendant's seat, his expression a mixture of fear, sadness, and exhaustion. His lawyer tried to prepare him for the difficult days ahead, but the boy was overwhelmed. The courtroom was a stage where every detail of his life, his actions, and his pain would be examined and debated. The pressure was immense. The prosecution painted a harsh picture of Ren, a cold, calculating murderer who had planned the horrific act to terrorize his classmates. They emphasized the brutality of the crime and argued that no matter the reasons, such violence could not be justified. They demanded the strictest punishment to send a message that this kind of crime would never be tolerated. The defense, however, presented a very different story. They described Ren as a victim, a boy pushed to the edge by years of torment and abuse. They showed the court the secret network of bullying and manipulation that had controlled so many students, including Ren himself. His violent act was portrayed as a desperate response to years of suffering and silence. Psychologists testified about Ren's fragile mental state. They explained how his isolation, fear, and anger had built up until he could no longer control his emotions. The defense argued that Ren needed help and rehabilitation rather than punishment. As the trial went on, shocking details emerged. Several students under protection came forward to speak about the secret network. They told stories of fear, threats, and control, confirming that the system of bullying was far worse than anyone had imagined. Teachers and school officials faced criticism for ignoring the warning signs and failing to protect their students. The community watched in disbelief. Many struggled to accept the complexity of the case. The simple ideas of victim and criminal no longer applied. This was a tragedy that involved many people, a reflection of a broken system. In the courtroom, the tension rose when evidence revealed that some adults, including teachers, had known about the bullying but chose to look away. The betrayal added another layer of anger and disappointment. Parents demanded changes to ensure such horrors could never happen again. Outside the court, protests and discussions took place. Students organized meetings to share their experiences and support each other. The case inspired a movement to end bullying and create safer schools. Many young people spoke out about the pressure they felt and the dangers of silence. Ren's confession remained central to the case. Despite his young age, he took responsibility for his actions, expressing deep regret for the pain he had caused. His honesty surprised some and angered others. The court had to balance sympathy for his suffering with the need for justice. The judge carefully considered all evidence and testimonies. After weeks of hearings, the verdict was finally announced. Ren was found guilty of murder, but the court acknowledged the extraordinary circumstances that led to his crime. Instead of a harsh prison sentence, he was ordered to receive psychological treatment and community service under strict supervision. This decision sparked debate across Japan. Some believed Ren should face a harsher punishment, while others felt the sentence was fair given his youth and the abuse he suffered. The case challenged the nation to rethink how it deals with young offenders and mental health. In the years that followed, the Kobe case left a lasting impact. Schools across the country implemented stronger anti-bullying programs and mental health support. Laws were changed to address secret online groups and bullying more effectively. Communities became more aware of the hidden dangers facing teenagers. Ren himself began a difficult journey of recovery. He spent years in therapy, learning to face his trauma and understand his emotions. Though still haunted by his past, he slowly found ways to rebuild his life. His case became a symbol of warning but also hope, that even those who fall hardest can find a way to heal. The memory of Haruto, the boy whose life ended so tragically, remained a painful reminder of the consequences of cruelty and silence. His family, though devastated, worked with anti-bullying organizations to help prevent similar tragedies. Their courage in speaking out inspired many. The Kobe case became a story told and retold, a dark chapter in Japan's history that changed how people saw their schools and their children. It reminded everyone that beneath the surface of normal life, hidden battles can rage. It showed the power of fear, control, and loneliness, and the urgent need for compassion and understanding. In the end, the case was more than just a crime. It was a lesson about the importance of listening, of protecting the vulnerable, and of facing painful truths no matter how difficult. It was a call to action, to build communities where no child feels trapped by fear or silence. The haunting image of the school gate, where Haruto's head had been displayed, faded with time but never disappeared from memory. It remained a symbol of a tragedy that shocked a nation, a warning to never ignore the cries of those who suffer in silence. The Kobe case left scars, but it also planted seeds for change. It opened eyes and hearts, inspiring a new generation to fight against bullying and cruelty. It reminded the world that behind every statistic, every headline, are real lives, fragile and complex. And so, the story of the teen who displayed his classmate's head on the school gate ended not just with pain and loss, but with hope. A hope that no more lives would be shattered in silence, and that one day, schools would be places of safety, understanding, and kindness.